Lodge have a tourism tax?
Yes.
County?
They have a resort tax, so Montana does have a resort tax law, but there are only about 4 or 5 communities in Montana that qualify for it, because it's, rather than being very straightforward to something like, you know, as I told this council, I think it's something we need to work on the legislature this session, is to do a reform of the resort tax law to say, well, if you've got a tourist attraction, visitor attraction that attracts X number of people per year, i.e. Koshika, then your community is qualified to run or to have its voters decide on whether or not to do a resort tax. As it currently operates, it's a very complicated, opaque formula based on the number of jobs that you have that are directly or tangentially related to the tourism industry. So it makes it, the way the law is currently written, it makes it very, very, very difficult for any community to get one. Red Lodge has it, Big Sky has it, I think maybe Kalispell, Whitefish, or one of them has it.
Kalispell does too.
Yeah, so but it's just a very, West Yellowstone has it. So there's only 4 or 5 communities in the entire state that can even qualify to have the thing. So it's, the way it's written, it makes it impossible for a town like Glen not to do it, and we just can't qualify for it. And again, North Dakota has the benefit of having sales taxes. They can tax visitors to help support stuff like this. In Montana, we just don't have that option. I think another thing, Mayor mentioned the petition. If I understand it right, the however many house signatures does it require 20% of the electorate? Now that would force, if I understand it right, that would force the commissioners to put on the ballot. Now they could choose to put on the ballot if they would choose to put on the ballot. I believe they should. I'm a believer in democracy, right? Let the people decide. I don't understand their reasoning of not letting people decide that for themselves. But the way to circumvent their current take on it and their current refusal to consider putting on the ballot would to be. There are a lot of people here. You guys could start. You got a good start to petition right here to put that together and get that petition and get it, force it on the ballot. At the end of the day, again, it's going to take a lot of. I think what the mayor said is correct, and what Red said is correct. The last time that this was tried, it was a very good proposal. It would not have really increased the taxes to city residents. It would have to those outside the city. To me, that is fair, because right now, what our problem right now is we have people within the city limits of Glendive are the only ones paying to support the service. Now, I know the people of West Glendive, they pay a little bit higher fees. We've already covered how the fees don't even come close to making up the difference. So really, it's the people inside the city who are paying to support and maintain our rec department staff salary, maintain our pool, maintain the rec center. It is only the people living inside the city limits who are carrying that burden. There are a couple of thousand people about on the other side of the river who are not paying to support those services. Okay, so a rec center makes more sense. A rec district makes a lot of sense because then everybody we are a community, right? Glendive, including West Glendive, is an entire community, even though we are and unfortunately a bifurcated community, and a community that's not quite whole in terms of the corporation, which does hurt us in a variety of ways. And this is one of the ways that it really hurts us. And we need everybody to buy into it. We need everybody to be supporting it so that we can continue to offer these services and maintain these facilities. And at present, though, that is not the case.
When was the last time that was took to the county commissioners, and what was their reasons for not wanting to include it?
Well, I called over to the commissioners a couple weeks ago, and I spoke with Shirley Kryman. She relayed my message to Dennis Zander, who was the commissioner that was in that day, and he didn't think it would pass, and I was told that it's kind of expensive to get it on the ballot. So I did go speak with Brad Mitchell about it. He also echoed the same concern. So I haven't spoken to Joe Charbonneau about it, but I was told that, the commissioners were not in favor of it on the ballot, and it was a financial thing. So, the deadline to get something on the ballot was the 12th of this ballot. There could be a write-in, you could do a write-in, there's still time to do a write-in. But it might be better to give ourselves a little bit of time to put it together and try to get it on another ballot or on its own mail ballot.
Why, if this was something that has been on your guys' horizon since May, was the community just made aware of it, like kind of in recent time, instead of bringing it up to us prior to that date, so that we could have gotten it on the ballot this time?
Maybe, but I wasn't really, it wasn't really something on my radar either. It failed at least twice that I know of, so.
Yeah, and I mean, we aren't now, and we definitely weren't then, thinking about, cutting the rec department. And so, we were starting on the budget process, we didn't have all the information until you, it's a huge process of year-end stuff, so you can't even, you're trying your best to predict in the future, to try to put a budget together, but you can't until you have all your information at the year-end, and so things don't start falling into place until July, really, right? At the right time.
Well, we just got the taxable values last week, and so that's when we found out where the shortfall was. We were expecting the mills to increase. We didn't expect them to go down. So we have to wait till we get those before we can plug all those numbers in, and then we see where we are. And so then we started to make cuts, and we've asked every department to come forward with suggestions and cuts. So, the rec department is no different. We're asking them for how we can make this work.
When it comes to a rec district, I know it would be a certain kind of tax on the taxable base within that district, but as far as services provided, would that fall under maintenance of parks? Does the city currently maintenances parks under public works, correct? But would that fall under a rec district, or would that fall within public works still?
I would like it to fall under parks and recreation, because, we have a lot of parks, acres of them. They're expensive to maintain, but we get, like this summer, we got, some kids from Fraser, Montana, came here to, go to Mokoshika, picnic in the park, swim at the pool. I mean, this is a lifetime experience for them. Glendale has beautiful parks, a beautiful pool. So, we're making memories for people all over the place. And so, yes, I would like to be able to, capture more people.
Yeah, and again, I mean, but yeah, I mean, Lloyd Square Park or Whiskey Park, everybody in the county uses those parks, but again, we're the ones that are paying for that, so if you could put all the parks into a parks and recreation district, and then the maintenance and all that stuff is all, and you figure all that out, who's responsible for what.
who would be the best person to talk to about this information for putting together a ballot initiative?
Shirley Kryman.
And as far as citywide, because you guys know the info about the parks, who's the best contact for park maintenance costs and stuff? Right. Okay.
Right here.
How much do we pay the Catholic Church?
I can give you a rundown on all that too, because we do keep track of that. It's itemized, and how much we spend on water. I can't tell you water. Well, some of them I probably can tell you how much water is put on each park. And as far as park expenses go, the water is what costs us the most. We are the biggest customer we have for water usage, so there is a big cost of water in parks. Other than that, the maintenance and the groundskeeping of the parks is under public works. That would be my portion of the general fund
knows that, and actually we have an update on this that's coming out, but, it's about $350,000 a year goes into taking care of our parks, and then there's about $350,000 a year for the rec department.
Is there a reason that the parks can't be watered with irrigation out of the river instead of purified city water? Forest Park uses irrigation water for all their irrigation. Is that an option? That could cut costs?
It would be if we had, like, I think you might be able to do something like that for Henninger Park. But, the equipment to do it is just something, we don't have that initial cost would be hard for us to cover.
The two
initially.
parks down alongside the river on the other side would be.
Well, you have to go over the levee and pull off the other side there, so that's a lot of equipment.
I mean, I'm just throwing
Yeah,
an idea
and
out.
water rights, there's a lot.
They're part of Buffalo Rapids over there, which is a whole.
Yeah, they have access to that irrigated water through Buffalo Rapids that I don't have. So Buffalo Rapids has the pumps and.
Yeah, that's just what I was wondering, is that an option, is it a viable option or something like that? Cause, I mean, why do you have to put purified chlorinated water on the yard? You know, if you could turn on with pump it right out of the river there. I understand there'd be some piping that would have to take place in there, but streets are pretty much torn down.
Well, I think the problem you run into there is one of the water rights and water rights.
That's the water drain probably.
My other question was, I didn't sign up for public comment, but my other question you brought up for, can the commissioners still put it on this coming ballot, or is it too late for them also?
The 12th was the deadline,
Okay, thank you.
but it could still be a write-in, but that's really hard to get a write-in for staff.
It could be brought as its own election outside of regular, or there's also, I think, yeah, it could be back on the school ballot.
Yeah, so May, I think there would be a school election ballot. And it could be possibly put on that, so.
Who pays for that too, because I think the cost of the city would probably, the city pays for it.
If we could get a recreation district established, I think we'll understand about it. A lot of that should be in this room. A rec district is its own local government entity, separate from the city, separate from the county. We have its own board of directors, and we have its own governance, its own dedicated funding source.
Similar to the West Glendive Fire District?
Similar to any community district.
How much does rent cost from the church for the rec department?
Right now, we're paying $900 a month, but, it is gonna go up substantially, January 1st. So, and we don't know what that, increase is gonna be yet. They held off doing the increase because we helped to refinish the floor. So they held off on giving us a rent increase, but that cost is just gonna continue to go up. They're in the driver's seat on that, so.
But if someone is interested in rec districts, I did, print out some stuff about, Belgrade that's trying to start one, and, how the plan is done, and so I do have that information afterwards, if anyone wants a copy, or you can copy of my copy. Anyway, I did do some legwork on it. It appears that, the previous administration committee had started to work on some of the costs of what it would be. But I think once she saw that it would be pretty expensive, I don't think it ever came forward to the council. But according to, the 22 and 23 budget, the city would need to raise about 64 mills, and the county would need about 19. So that would raise the cost on a $100,000 home in the city by $86, and in the county by $25. But the county's mills are worth more. So there's a lot of different ways to do this and to present it, so it's helpful if you have someone that has a financial background that might be interested in doing some, digging on that.
I take it everybody in here is pretty much users of the rec department in one way, shape, or another. Would you guys be opposed to paying 400% more on fees? Show of hands.
I would.
I think it would prohibit a lot of the community members from being involved.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know
I have one
myself.
kid, you have like 8.
Three. But I think that's one of the great things about this community is that even if there are several, if not the majority of our community is low income, they're still able to participate in those sports and programs and steer them towards better paths.
That's precisely why we don't want to raise fees
Yeah.
by 4 to 5 times.
I agree with
We
that.
want those services to be available for everybody.
But historically not raising them could have helped. I mean, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
If we would have increased them gradually with the inflation, it wouldn't be 4 times. So I think that's maybe something to look at to the future. And again, not chastising, but hindsight always is 2020. That I think people are.
Sorry.
Could I ask a question on page 8 of the estimated expense? Did you say that $300,000 a year is coming out of there to maintain parks?
Yeah, so out of that, that's what we do have an updated sheet on that, so it's almost split in half, the rec departments.
Half of it's park, half of it's recreation.
So then out of the balance, what is it costing Jackie to run the pool? What is the pool costing us?
About $186,000.
Okay.
About $200,000 a year. And that's.
And that's,
Yeah, that
and
doesn't
with
include payroll.
chemicals, they are going up, I tell you, by the
Yeah,
hour.
well, I can attest to that too, because we did do, if you're paying attention, I structured a rate increase and rate raise on water rates, because, during COVID and after COVID, we were getting constant letters every month of treatment costs, of treatment material, supplies just going up. They went up over a year and a half. My treatment costs for supplies for the water treatment plant went up like 31%. And so we adjusted to that, and that's the same thing that was brought up in the back about, that slow increase on rates over a few years would help. But we're in that same situation with the water. Those rates were in place for so long and never addressed and never looked at, that we're in a situation where we had to change a lot. We were looking at a substantial increase. We were able to make something work that we didn't have to do that, but we did a tiered, set up that tiered rate increase. It worked. And so, all departments were seeing it. I really see it in public works because of treatment costs, and then the trucking to get it here, and the parts and supplies we have to buy, pumps, a pump that we have a pump go out in the lift station a few years ago, but it cost me $7,000 to replace that pump. Now it's $20,000, $22,000. And so when we start purchasing stuff like that out of a budget to fix a pump that goes out because of a massive storm or something like that, the rest of the budget suffers. So you can't put money that had, like especially in, you look in the general fund, street repairs come out of the general fund. So when you're looking at parks and so part of the entire part of the public works portion of the general fund, street repairs are included in that, and that includes not 50 ton or whatever I can afford. I take this budget, I look at everything I have, and then I order the max amount of cold mix I can get. And we run out every year. We're waiting on it right now. We got a truckload back. Using that for the worst potholes we can get to. We are waiting on it. When we get it, we'll get back out and start putting it down. But we buy the max we can in our budget every year, and we run out every year. Last year was good on sand and gravel for streets, for snow removal, but the year before it was over budget, so it's hard to balance it out for a year, and then you gotta sit here at this time of year and guess what you're gonna do. That doesn't help.
With this budget that we're looking at, I don't know if you all heard what Frank was saying, but basically fixing potholes is coming out of the general fund, rec department, whether it's swimming pool or anything else, but a lot of what Frank deals with are costs that we don't have any control over. tell Frank to cut your sanding budget by half, and he runs out of sand halfway through the winter, and you get 1,000 more accidents on slippery streets. So, we gotta buy sand to sand the streets, and it's all tied in together, and that's why I say it's a citywide problem, not just a bunch of problem. But, so, did we wanna resume on public comment? People wanna continue?
Well, let's try to get through the public comment and, before we do, Jackie, I was taking notes while you were talking, but I wasn't sure if you, had addressed all of what you thought were solutions.
You know, it's just a lot. I just focus on the programs of what we have, you know, what benefits the kids and the adults. Solutions, I'm willing to hear what other ones that could work, but it also on that part, there's only 2 of us that really overall have to maintain the whole department. Yes, we do bring in some referees to help us out, and every once in a while a high school student to help me cover like an evening. But the hours, it's a big situation for us too, because we have a family and want to go home to a family, and yes, we do a lot of those hours already, but at the same time we are also volunteering, willing to work the 12 hours on a Monday so that we can have a Friday off to be with the family. And not to say that it's all about self kind of hours, but it's also, I just want to open enough for the community to utilize the most it can reach. How many kids, like the more of the kids we get into these programs, I feel like it builds their skills, it keeps them busy, it keeps them off the streets, putting spray paint on sidewalks kind of situation. It builds skills, like we have the Utah Jazz 1st and 2nd grade that we started up here a couple of years ago as a newer program. You can already see in those skill levels, those kids that have started in that 1st and 2nd, that they just exceed. You see that the want, and they just want to be more involved with sports and going through. And with that being said, as they get into high school, if they keep it going, you know, I'm assuming there's still that grade incentive that you have to have a certain grade or GPA in order to keep playing. Well, then that keeps their academics also alive as well. So it's really the value of how well can we reach our youth and our adults to keep our community healthy and going and active, and maybe something even with adults and youth together to bring that mentorism into a situation. So options are like, we're willing to hear, like, you know, what can we do for the kids and the youth, or the adults, excuse me.
Does anybody know how much the Utah Jazz basketball team?
All right, well then the public comment would be Barbara Gay.
I think we had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear. I'm kind of deaf.
Jackie mentioned the Utah Jazz, which I didn't realize was a program actually sponsored by the Utah Jazz basketball team. Does anybody have the numbers of what they donate to the program?
Jackie should have those numbers. I know what it costs us to.
It's not necessarily a donation, it's affiliation with the Utah Jazz NBA association, but it's a discounted cost of like uniforms, jerseys that you reach out, and it just gives kids a mentor of NBA. So like if they got the jersey, I don't know the numbers, like 11, I think that was like a Karl Malone kind of thing. They get a baseball card, they get a certificate with it, just kind of as an NBA reach out, and it has kind of some positive. With that being said, we tried 1 year, it's probably been maybe 5-6 years ago. We tried to not do it with the Utah affiliation of the logo kind of situation, and it was actually almost 2 times the amount of cost to order the jerseys in.
So with that, it was definitely something that they could get the Utah Jazz logo, and then we could put our Glendive name on the back, and it was, I would say half of what it was originally when we did it. I guess I haven't looked into going separately from that, but it's just like a youth affiliation that they work with each community.
If it's an option, kind of piggybacking off that, how could that compare to like the soccer program where you go out to the community? I mean, I work at Mid Rivers Communications. Would that cost still be double, Jackie, or is that if you go to community businesses to sponsor a team somewhere?
I think if we could get sponsors, I think that would help tremendously as well. And then I was told, my understanding is that we can't fundraise because of the taxpayer, that we get funded by taxpayers, so we can't necessarily fundraise, but we can take sponsorships in from different people. Am I correct on that? I don't know. I guess that's something that I was kind of looking into.
I've heard that before, but we can check on that.
But that was something.
You asked me about that yesterday, and I wasn't sure either, but my understanding is that when you were discouraged from raising maybe by the previous administration, they were trying to say that taxpayers are already paying and it's against their will, really, because they're being taxed. And so that was why they didn't think that we should go and ask for more money, but I don't think that we're prohibited from it, but again, we would have to ask an attorney that question, or why you ever got that information in the first place. I don't really know. That was the only thing I could try to put together, was because of taxpayer money is already paid for it, and then you're asking them to pay again. But you know, we do that with a lot of different things that are taxpayer funded schools, and we still pay in
Firefighter fundraisers.
Since Jackie asked that yesterday, did you have a chance to reach out to an attorney to get some advice so we could make a more educated, or have a more educated discussion on that?
Did I today? No, I've been in meetings all day.
But I don't think there's a law prohibiting you from doing fundraisers, having like a corporate sponsorship. Yeah, no, I think like.
Well, you do it for soccer, so I would imagine soccer is sponsor the program, correct, Jackie?
Yes, we get quite a few businesses throughout the season, and that's what you see on the back of their shirts. If you look at any of the soccer, we put all their logos on the back of the shirt. On their schedules, we put the names of the sponsors on all the schedules. So these kids come home and they're wearing their shirts to school and stuff. You know, there is some advertising with that sponsorship as well. And you're reaching these spectators that come and watch these events. Sometimes you have grandparents, sometimes you have friends come down, so you get the advertisement out throughout that way. So I guess that's how we've always tried to reach out for sponsorships, but I didn't know on the fact of fundraising. I was told once no, and then that's when I brought that up again, because I think people would be willing, you know, even though they're paying taxes, you know, with their kids and everything, if depending on the fundraiser, it might be a suggestion to go with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely, I would think, all on the table for the situation that we're in, so, yeah. Okay, so now we're doing?
All right, well, I think we need to get to public comment because we still have quite a bit on the agenda.
Yeah.
So, again, Barbara O'Day, you are the first one that signed up.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I'm pretty uneducated on how everything works from this capacity, so I don't know if, you know, I can speak very well on this, but it sounds like there might be some solutions that are kind of like meet in the middle. Is it possible to, you know, maybe cut the watering of the parks by a quarter, by half? You know, 350,000 was what I understood in water to our parks, but maybe I misunderstood that. So maybe, you know, look at cutting the water. Well, that opens up a good chunk of money in addition to that. So what was the money saving of moving the hours? How much money did that save? and why was that like a viable solution to keep the rec department open? And maybe we can adjust the hours just slightly, and so have that kind of like meet in the middle, and then maybe look at, you know, a mill or two. You know, it sounds like we can't tap all of them, but a mill or two tax increase. Like, is there kind of a meet in the middle? With the grants, I think that that's a great option, and I think, you know, I don't know if this is an option or not, but is there something where, like, to kind of help save the rec department, there could be like an advisory committee that's able to look at things, you know, look at, okay, where's our budget? How much is each program bringing in versus how much each program is putting out? And so then we can look at our programs and look at program by program, how do we make each program more sustainable? Because I think obviously we all want to keep the rec department, but maybe one program, the rec department isn't as sustainable as another, and so we have to raise the cost on, you know, one program. I think we could raise the rec department fees. I mean, you know, maybe even $10. That's not a huge, it's not a 4 times increase, but that's a, you know, 50% increase that in combination with less watering and an adjustment of hours, that all of these things can kind of be looked at together and in conjunction to help make that more sustainable. So I don't know if it's possible for a public advisory committee to be formed to kind of come up with solutions that then can be presented as a whole to the committee to make that more, you know, so it's digestible all at once, and so that the community can kind of see and understand all at once what the different options are that can be looked at. Is that also like the grants you mentioned that have to be applied for? If they have to be applied for, do they have to be applied for by the city? Are they applied for by the rec department? Are they applied for by individuals? And if they're applied for by individuals, then an advisory committee could be kind of putting in the work to make that happen, you know, on a volunteer basis. So those are some suggestions. I kind of, listening to all of this and all of that I heard, I don't know how much of it is possible or not because I don't know how things work, but it sounds like there are some really good options to keep it. It seems like the way this was presented to the community, from what I understood, was that it was either a change of hours or the rec department closed. And I didn't,
But how did you get that idea? I'm just.
I think it was just from, yeah, like I think it was from the Ranger Review, which I guess was pretty disappointing. You know, I was tagged, you know, I am very invested in our rec programs. I also formed a program, the Glendive Soccer Club, this year, and so I think people realize how passionate I am about things in this community. And so I was tagged in the first post where somebody said, you know, what are we going to do if the rec department closes? And immediately received a response of, that's not even on the table. That was not even discussed. And then 2 days later, the comment was either we change the hours or we have to look at things like closing the department. And that's, I mean, kind of from, you know, today what I understood or what I heard was a similar commentary.
Well, I think some misinformation got out there, because we did have a lot of options, and I know that Stacy had emailed me wanting to get this information out to the public that, you know, that could end up that the rec department could close, and I was opposed to it because, for one, we didn't have the final taxable values yet. We didn't even know what the mills were. So unfortunately, this information was put out there that kind of, I think, snowballed, but you have some great ideas. I think certainly we can look at raising some of the fees programs. That's what we've been talking about. An advisory committee might be very helpful because I feel like, and this is nothing against Jackie or Stacy, but I feel that the thought of changing anything has become kind of overwhelming, and we just are overwhelmed with what they're doing right now. And like I told Jackie yesterday, sometimes we're just so busy chasing our tail that we don't see the big picture. I mean, we don't look for a $2 million grant or think of building a new rec center because all we're trying to do is just plod through it. So it would be nice to have some new, fresh ideas to come forward. I have written down all the things that Jackie mentioned, but I do think that it would be helpful. So thank you for your comment. and
Yeah.
your information.
Kind of along those lines. So, shoot, now it just left me. My thought just left me. My apologies.
Okay, so Carrie Keller, you're the next one. Are you still here?
Of course, I got a Charlie horse. Anyways, so as a mom of a child that is in softball and has been in softball for 5 years, I just want to say that they have even increased their costs of how much it costs to do their program. And I also use the art program in the summer for my daughter. This year she didn't want to do it, but the previous year she did. I would have paid double the cost for that because it is very beneficial for her because she's very into the arts. When I'm looking at this little graphy thing that we have right here, and just coming to my mind is that why don't we cut, just to save nickels, pennies, dollars, whatever, that all the city employees quit taking city vehicles home, because the gas going to and from home adds up, you know. And I don't know if this is true or not. There was a picture that was going on that Tim Terrian drives from Glendive to Terry every day in a city vehicle. So if that's the case, then that's true.
That's not true though.
Okay. So, but just from everybody that has a city vehicle that drives to and from work.
It does save response time. It does save some response time, and it is the previous administration that did all this as a perk to try to, you know, keep people.
Which is very interesting because when my father was fire chief, that vehicle was not allowed to leave the fire hall.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, granted, he doesn't live that far. Sorry, my accent's going out. I'm tired. I'm working since 7:3 this morning. So that's one just idea. Just like trim that down. If they ain't working, you know, that vehicle don't need to go home, whatnot. For their schedule, why not use the Panama schedule? Okay, I know I'm talking military lingo. If some of you have been active duty, you know what I'm talking about. Panama scheduling is actually quite effective. It's 3 12s, 4 days off, 4 12s, 3 days off. So that you always have somebody there for 12 hours. So that you don't have.
About the rec department?
Mm-hmm. So that you don't have, since you want to open it up later, so that you don't have both of them there at the same time. So it also cuts down on overtime. It cuts down on comp time. Overall, you would have somebody in that building for the 12 hours. And they wouldn't be closing for lunch because they'd be taking their lunch in the building. It's part of the Panama scheduling, so you don't leave the building. But the nice thing about it is you work 3 days one week and you work 4 days the next week. So essentially, you're working 2 weeks out of the month. So.
Well, I can tell you that Jackie and Stacy do not want their schedule changed. Stacy made it clear that she does not want her schedule to change, or.
It's been an option that has been presented a few times on trying to adjust their schedules over the last few months, and it has been met with, what's the right word? That they don't want to change their schedules, and so that has been a problem.
Well, the only reason I was really thinking about it is when she was saying they would work 12 hours, she would work 12 hours on Monday, which is 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That would fit into the Panama scheduling to where, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then the other one works,
awesome.
You know, so that you would be able to have all your programs, be able to, the complaints that you have that people can't go and get signed up during the business hours.
After 5, yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. And then they're there also during, you know, the winter for Utah Jazz and volleyball. And as you see, I'm a sports supporter. I am not a sports whatever thingy majigger. I'm too old for that crap.
Doer.
Yeah, doer. There you go. Trying to remember what it was called. I mean, a few years ago, no problem. I ran them 5Ks. But yeah, anyways. And so that's just one of my ideas.
Well, with Jackie and Stacy present, are you guys willing to adjust your hours? I mean, hate to have another people here in the room.
Okay, so this is how we see it. We work 8 to 5. We have soccer in Utah on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays. Wednesdays, we have basketball, and we have leisure league. This is different times throughout the year. This is not all year long. And then on Fridays, we usually don't plan anything, so we can actually have an evening off. And we work Saturdays like Utah Jazz and soccer in the mornings. Sundays we do volleyball and we do basketball. So we literally work every day of the week. Our lives revolve around this job all year long. During the swimming pool, we are on call half the season, half the summer. We take turns being on call and taking care of all the other stuff.
With the adjustment of schedule, would that relieve some of that? Like if we do like what Carrie's saying, where it would be like a 3.
I don't see it working. I don't see it working when we are working almost, okay, for soccer, we do Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturday mornings. So I don't know how that would work.
And so for the soccer for Saturday mornings, like both of you guys, I know you guys ref and line judge. Can some of that be filled like by volunteer positions? Or?
We could if we got people to volunteer, but sometimes we can't even get other
Like,
refs.
if throwing things at the wall, some of these programs are here, some of them aren't there, would you guys be willing to adjust your schedule?
I would say it's a fair, but what we're asking for, we already volunteer our time schedule to adjust to work evenings. The situation it comes is it does start affecting the two of us, our family lives. So the strict, when there's no programs running, it sure is nice to have that 3-12 idea, but also that we gotta have a break as well. It's just two of us trying to cover referees, scorekeepers, gym monitors. And then all of a sudden you get a call, can't do it. So guess what? You got to think outside the box for a second. So that's when I started doing back in when I was still, I think, assistant. I finally got tired of trying to scramble for a referee, and I just started doing it because I know I would fill that void. So I am not opposed to changing the schedule, but I also want to be able to, like, if we have to have that, are we able to bring like a volunteer too that we could run an evening at the to keep it open gym so that we aren't there until 9 p.m. every night and we lose out on our valuable time that we have to also regroup and everything because we do work 7 days a week. And we try to make it work out by taking and cutting hours around. So I am not personally opposed to changing hours, but I also want some self-relief as well on my part, because if I can get a refresh, it brings me back in for even a stronger let's do this kind of situation. So no, I'm not opposed to it, but I think it needs to be a fair situation as well.
Maybe that's where an advisory committee could assist with that. Like if the advisory committee was responsible for finding volunteers or coordinating volunteers, that could eliminate some of that stress, like that burden off of yours.
I don't know, and maybe on the forums, maybe we could put a little something for people who are willing to volunteer to help out. To do some sidelining for repping or some other things, or even like scorekeeping for Utah Jazz or...
Yeah, baseball and softball, you would have to pay $100
Make it a
fee.
requirement for those parents. My kids participate in almost every sport and activity in this community too, and I have to volunteer to make those programs and those events run.
And if you don't, like softball, you pay $100 fee.
Yeah.
If you don't go to the concessions.
If you don't want to volunteer, then pay extra.
Yeah, and I'll admit, I pay that $100 fee so I don't have to work the concession stand. I pay it.
Or I could do that. Yeah.
Well, let's move on to, Debbie Severe, are you still here?
You have to leave momentarily. You covered a lot of things that I might have brought up, and I think it helped a misconception for a long time. It was, even on this agenda, it says, discuss rec department schedule change and other options. Yet, but the deficit was a rec, and I think you helped, Jason did with the budget, alleviate some of the misconception that the downfall was just the rec department.